All right, today I'm doing a speech about communication in relationships. I asked my wife as I'm preparing for this speech if she had any key points or anything that she may want to add, something I should hit while I'm doing my speech. And after a brief moment went by, she looked at me with a blank stare and she said, "What'd you say, baby?" That in itself is communication relationships. But seriously, throughout this speech, you will hear me constantly talking about communication. You will also hear me say relationships and how they intertwine together. How effective communication can also make that transition in relationships a little smoother, a little better. It can possibly save a relationship or keep one from even going down the hill in the first place. However, however one chooses to get a message across to another person is a form of communication. Now, before we get too involved into the conversation about communication, maybe I should just tell you a little bit about what communication is. Communication is a systematic process in which people interact with or without symbols to interpret or create a meaning. Now, that explanation comes from Julia T. Wood and her Communication of Mosaics, which is a text we were actually using in my class. Think about professional football for a moment. You know, communication is very, very much needed in that scenario. You can very well get a whole team together and go throw them out on the field and say, hey, go have fun. Chances are you're going to lose that game. But if that coach goes ahead and talks to his players and get a specific play for specific moments, then it has a better chance of going ahead and winning that game. That's communication. And we'll dig a little bit more into the type of plays and everything a little bit later on. This is Georgia football, for all you guys who are wondering out there. So football is going to be mentioned. But you know, the form of communication has changed a whole lot throughout the years. Verbal has always been the most popular, followed closely by written. But according to Harley Eastman of Brigham Young University, technology has changed the way communication has been done over the last 20 years. It's actually decreased verbal communication dramatically in the last 20 years. And in fact, those who own cell phones, which you would think would be made for calling, over 70% of them or more actually use those cell phones for texting instead of calling. Technology also introduced social media to social media is a whole new ball game. Social media, you can literally touch another country, contact another country with a few clicks of a button. And ironically, 750 million people actually get on Facebook through their mobile device instead of on a computer or anything like that. So, of course, like technology, it's changed the whole world of communication. So, how does relationship relate into what I'm saying right now? Well, let's go ahead and let's contact Webster's dictionary for his description of what a relationship is. Well, according to Webster's dictionary, a relationship can be defined as the way in which two or more people, groups, countries, etc., talk to, behave towards, and deal with each other. And let's think about that for a moment. The way we talk to, the way we behave with, and deal with others. Isn't that a form of communication? So when you really think about it, communication relationships, well, the foundation of a relationship is finding communication. It's in the very description of the word relationship. Therefore, the trick is using effective communication. Now, I'm not just talking about talking to a person or just writing a letter or to a business or to a family friend, whatever it may be. Effective communication. So let's go ahead and dig into that a little bit deeper. In addition to keeping the lines of communication open, you have to be able to identify ways of communication. So the best way to be effective communication, you want to think about active listening. Active listening, what is active listening? Well, if I ask you a question and you don't respond properly, I can tell you're not actively listening. And if you don't join eyes with me or respond in a manner with your okay, I understand, or head nods, or any kind of bodily gesture, I can tell you're not listening to me. And that just kind of goes on a little bit with that. You also have to start thinking about the receiver. Can he understand what I'm saying? Am I making it simple enough? Even if you're sending a text message or if you're typing the email. In those communication ways, a lot of that gets lost because you really can't put emotion behind a text or email like you can with a verbal communication. Excuse me. So previously I used a scenario about a football team. About football. Yes, football again. Well, you can't just give them a play and just assume that play is going to work. What if your quarterback is not listening to the coach when he gives him that play? What if the player is not listening to the quarterback? You think anything going to go right on that field? It's be a catastrophe. But if you sit down and you make sure that what you're saying to your team is simple, the context is not hard to grasp, and you make sure they're understanding and they're responding back appropriately, the chances of you going on the field and being successful are very high. So, another example of a breakdown in communication. Let's look at TV marriages. How often do you see on TV in the characters where the wife is talking to the husband and the husband really isn't paying attention? He's pretending, but he's not really paying attention. Well, in that scenario, unfortunately, is very common. And it usually ends in a catastrophe, at least in my house. Yeah, at least in my house. If an employer speaks to his employees and he speaks to them in a manner that makes them feel like children or like he's talking to his children, chances are they're not very receptive of what he has to say. And they're not going to want to work hard for him. Just like on the other side of that, if an employer is very meek or not well spoken, chances are employees will run over him, he or she. You have to find that fine balance in between. As an employee, if you don't talk to your employer with a little more emphasis in what you're trying to say, if you're stuttering everything that's coming out of your mouth, or you're very meek and quiet, chances are you're not going to be received. So it's a two-way street, two-way communication on both sides. So now we come back to the original point of this whole conversation, communication and relationships. Previously I spoke about the definition of a relationship. And in that definition, there was also a couple of examples of relationships. You had groups, you had person to person, you had countries. In addition to that, you have friends, you have your significant other, business, work, school, all whatever kind of relationship you want to refer to. The communication will always be the most important part. It's always going to be the foundation. Relationships are built through the various means of communication. Let's say you're a guy and you see an attractive woman and you're checking her out. The moment she turns and looks at you and you catch eye contact, communication has just started. Body gestures. Let's say you want a job. The moment you walk in with that smile on your face to introduce yourself, to ask if they're hiring, or the moment you go on the internet, you apply for you do the application. You're still starting and opening those lines of communication. Even in school, I mean, with our class, online classes, we have discussion boards, videos, audio. All those are forms of communication, keeping the lines open. At the core of all those relationships, you find communication. Too often, relationships falter because somebody's not listening and not paying attention, or they're too scared to ask, what did you say? What does that mean? In the same token, the person who's presenting the information, they're trying to be too high tech with it. They're not breaking it down, making it simple, or reassuring that the people they're talking to or whoever they're trying to get the information through to are receptive, are receiving, can actually understand the text of what they're putting out there. Many friendships have been lost from that same token. People not actually listening to who their friend when they're trying to tell them what's going on with them. In a relationship, as far as this with your significant other, many of those fail because one doesn't listen to the other, or one isn't taking the time to understand the other. In a relationship, if you have nothing else that you take from this whole conversation, is that you have to stop, look, listen, and really get the communication open. You have to correspond. You have to correlate all that information together. It's a two-way on both sides. And retain the information given and letting the sender know that it has been understood is going to be the key to communication. And effective communication is going to be the key and foundation and backbone to any relationship. Thank you for listening to what I had to say today. My name is Alvin Jones. Hope that something got through to you. Have a good night.